saying that in the Old Testament is the New Testament concealed, and in the New Testament is the Old Testament revealed. Sometimes it's hard to understand what is going on in one part of the book without realizing what the other part of the book really means. If you have a Bible, turn for a minute to Revelation 19. Because it says there, "Let us be glad and rejoice and give him glory, for the marriage of the Lamb has come, and his wife has made herself ready." It's difficult in this culture to comprehend what that really means, because our concept of marriage and a wedding ceremony is entirely different than it was when this was written. A Hebrew wedding in the days when this was written was a long, drawn-out affair. And one of the things that happened was the bride and bridegroom were betrothed for a long period of time before the wedding actually took place. But even so, it's hard for us to conceive of Christ as being a bridegroom and taking a wife in the concept that we have of a wedding. And that's not really what the concept is. Because it's even harder for us to believe that God was married. Yet the Bible implies that back in Isaiah. And it says, "For your Maker," he's talking to Israel, "for your Maker is your husband. The Lord of hosts is his name. And your Redeemer is the Holy One of Israel. He is called the God of the whole earth, for the Lord has called you like a woman forsaken and grieved in spirit, like a youthful wife when you were refused." The concept of marriage in this context is entirely different from our concept. This is a union of God and man. And God and Israel were considered to be united as one because Israel was God's chosen people. So to understand this really fully, you have to go all the way back to Genesis, back to the 2nd chapter of Genesis. "For the Lord said, it is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper comparable to him." So if you want to rephrase that, put it down that it is not good that God should be alone. I will make a helper for me. This is why it says that therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. Notice it does not say a woman shall leave her father and mother, but a man shall leave his and become joined to the woman, and they shall be one flesh. They shall be joined together as one. That's the whole concept of the marriage in Revelation. That Christ and the church will be joined as one. So in that context, look over at Ephesians. Because this is a passage which gets a lot of people uptight. But if you look at it in the proper light, it doesn't. It says in chapter 5, "Wives, submit to your husbands, as to the Lord. For the husband is head of the wife, as also Christ is head of the church. And he is the Savior of the body. Therefore, just as the church is subject to Christ, so let the wives be to their own husbands in everything. This implies the husband is Christ and the wife is the church. The church has to be submissive to Christ all the time. But at the same time, it says, husbands, love your wives, just as Christ has loved the church and gave himself for her, that he might sanctify and cleanse her with the washing of water and the word, that he might present her to himself, a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that she should be holy and without blemish. So husbands ought to have their own wives, love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. The church and Christ are to be one. And we all know that Christ loves us. So if that's the case, we as a church are to submit to Christ, to be worthy of him. As in Revelation it says, a church without spot or blemish, a wife without spot or blemish, us without spots or blemish. It also goes on to say, this is a great mystery, but I speak concerning Christ and the church. Nevertheless, let each one of you in particular so love his own wife as himself, and let his wife see that she respects her husband. You notice it does not ask the wife to love the husband, but to respect the husband. The church says we are to fear God, and fear in this manner means respect. So the church is to respect God and Jesus, and Christ already loves us. The marriage in Hebrew times was a long drawn-out affair. It would often be a year or two before the bride and groom would actually become truly married. When we become saved, we become engaged to Christ. It's a long engagement. But sometime, as in Hebrew times, the bridegroom would come and take the bride-to-be back to his father's home. Christ said, in my Father's home are many mansions, and I will come for you. When we are raptured up, when we go to heaven, this is Christ coming for us to take us to his Father's home, to enjoy the marriage supper of the Lamb, which will last for eternity. Something to work forward to work towards being without spot or blemish, to be the best we can, because Christ loves us, and that someday we will be one with him. Something to think about.
Amen.